If I started the night rolling on some ecstasy, I didn't stop until 6 a.m. when all of the drugs that we had were gone. We were walking home from school. I was talking about what we had been talking about earlier in the day in DARE class, and I brought up that drugs seem really bad except for pot. That doesn't seem that bad at all. And they said, you know, you're right. In fact, we've been smoking it and we happen to have some, if you'd like to join us. And I said, awesome, let's do it. And the world around me transformed from a world filled with fear of other people's opinions to a magical world of possibilities. I got introduced to the club scene and electronic music, which also made me feel included for the very first time. And the combination of that with the marijuana use led to a construction of a sort of identity for me. In high school, it progressed into other club drugs like ecstasy, alcohol, acid. In my mind, I was only benefiting from it. I had a huge group of friends, I had a girlfriend, I was getting recognized for the music that I was making, but still continued through college. I didn't see any consequences from my drug use because I thought college is just a backup plan. I'm gonna get famous with this whole music thing. And once I graduated, I said, you know what, I don't have to go to class anymore. I get to party as hard as I want and as much as I want. And that's exactly what I did. So I thought I was stronger than other people. I thought I was smarter than other people. I thought that the other people who went to jail or became IV drug users or that tried heroin were stupid or weak, and that I wasn't one of them. And so one day I was waiting tables and somebody at the restaurant said, hey man, I have a Percocet if you want to try it. Up until that point, like I said, I could try any drug and didn't see any consequences from it. And so I said, sure man, let me try one of those. Went in the bathroom, snorted it, and for the first time in my life, I felt like Superman. I was funnier at my tables, I was getting better tips, I was more confident. Not only the physical pain of being tired or standing at work melted away, but any emotional pain I was going through melted away as well. The way that I used drugs became a search for that same oblivion. From that point on, if I took one drink of alcohol, I took 12 or 15. And some friends of mine in the music industry said, hey man, come move out to Jersey City, you'll be closer to the city, you'll be able to do some gigs, and we got some stuff that'll get you off of that Percocet. And they were selling ketamine at the time. And I fell in love. It replaced the Percocets, it brought me to complete oblivion, no physical addiction, and I was able to live one short train ride away from the city where I was able to go to the club 4 or 5 nights a week, promote my music, and also sell a little bit of K to get by. Lost my job, went back to my hometown to live with my dad. The ketamine wasn't around anymore. So I sought out Percocets, couldn't find it, but my buddy at the local pizza place had some heroin. And I said, no. And then I went back again and asked him if he had Percocets the next day. And he said, no, well, I still have that heroin. And he said, it's the same thing. So I said, all right, fine, I'll try it. And yeah, for the next about year and a half of my life, I couldn't hold down a job. Living rent-free in my dad's apartment, scamming money from my dad while asking him for money because I needed food or what have you and spending it on heroin and crack. And it was an awful, awful time in my life. But my mother had moved out to Arizona. My mother gave me a call and said, hey, so for your birthday, would you like me to send you some money or would you like to come out here for a little while? I wanted to run away from my problems. I thought, I don't know anybody out there who has heroin or crack or anything like that. But I was still searching for the easiest and softest way that I could find to stop. Once I got a job at the restaurant, restaurants are notorious for having drugs around. I found a cocaine connect while I was there. Inevitably, I ended up losing that job too. And I was never the kind of person who would flat out steal from somebody. I may ask to borrow some money and not pay it back, and that was the way that I stole, but I began to scheme And so what I figured out is, with the help of the internet, I found out that I could order semi-legal drugs online, research chemicals, different psychedelics. I could order them for extremely cheap and trade them to other people for the drugs that I really wanted, which are just extremely strong benzodiazepines, research chemicals. And I began just combining the drugs, all the drugs I can get my hands on, into one water bottle at the same time. I relocated to a place where I knew nobody, and I figured out a way to get myself into a place that was worse than I ever was before. I gave up. I said, you know what? The way I'm doing it's not working. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I said this to my mother, and she says, well, I want you to go to rehab. I didn't have any insurance at the time, so they put me in a state-run rehab. I thought that they were going to tell me how to be a normal person and just have beer at barbecues or smoke weed when you're going to the movies or to a concert. I had completely drifted away from any sort of notion of any sort of spirituality. To me, if you couldn't prove it with science, then it was hokum. Luckily, I had a really good counselor in that treatment center. And when I was telling him, I don't want to do these drugs anymore, but I have another voice in my head that keeps saying, hey, maybe you could just use these drugs, or maybe you could just use those drugs. And he said to me, well, have you tried praying about it? I said, no, I don't believe in any of that kind of stuff. And he said, well, what could it hurt? For me, it was essential to completely accept that my way of dealing with what's going on inside doesn't work. I want to smoke a little bit of weed and drink a little bit, and that does not work. So I had to give myself over. Found a new sponsor, and he took me through the steps. You don't have to make the mistakes that I made in order to get this thing. You don't have to go down as far as I did to get this thing. You don't have to be talking to people that aren't there and laying out crazy research chemical drugs to try and trade for heroin. You don't have to get to those depths in order to get help. Don't try to do it yourself. Reach out for help, whether it's through a loved one, a 12-step program, picking up the phone and calling a helpline, whatever it is. Just don't do it on your own.
Detox to Rehab wants to help as many people as possible, and do it the right way. Please subscribe, comment, and like our channel. Thank you for watching.